Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to another video. From today's video, we're going to be discussing about how can we use our speech, our words in a wiser way, right? Now, to do that, in Buddhism, we learn 5 things, 5 rules to follow and ask from ourselves 5 questions before we speak, right? Now, this is taught in regarding to reproving to someone, like showing a mistake to someone. But these 5 rules can be added to our normal day-to-day speech as well. And it will make a greater change and it will make a greater impact on ourselves as well as others. So that is why it is important to understand the words that we speak has got power. There's a beautiful saying that says, words can make people and words can break people. So that understand the words that we speak has got power and it matters. So how can we speak in a wiser way, right? How can we use our words in a wiser way? Now, in Buddhism, we learn 5 rules to follow this, right? 5 questions to ask from ourselves before we speak. Now, the first question that we need to ask from ourselves before we speak something is that, am I speaking in the proper time, right? Sometimes, even though it is true, even though it is truthful what we speak, maybe not the proper time to speak. Now, what is the proper time to speak? Now, the whole idea, the whole point of speaking is to get the message across to the other person in the correct way. But sometimes, even though we are saying the truth, even though we are saying the right thing, that person who is receiving the message may not be in a condition to get the message, right? He or she may be not in a mindset to receive the message. So that if we convey the message, they may not get the same idea that we are having. Now, the whole point of communication is to get the idea, to plant the same idea on the other person, right? But if we did not do in the proper time, it won't work. And that is why in Buddhism we learn, wait until the proper time. Ask from yourself, am I speaking in the proper time, right? Now, for an example, if you need to show a mistake in someone, if you need to correct a mistake in someone, now you need to communicate. That is where you need the communication in, like, it is very important at that time, right? The right communication. But if you say that mistake, if you show that mistake when that person is angry, right? When that person's mind is filled with anger, what happens? They may not get the idea. They may not see the mistake that we are showing. Okay? So what we do, we wait until the anger cools down and open his ears and mind. Now, when our mind is in anger, we are not ready to listen to anyone, right? We are not ready to think about what is wrong or what is right. That is why the Buddha says, "Khuddho attang na jananti." When your mind is in anger, you don't know what is good and bad, right? So that we need to understand. If we need to get a message across to that person, we need to wait for the proper time until their mind is open, until their ears are open, until they are ready to listen and understand that message. So that waiting until the proper time is very important when we communicate. That is the first question that we need to ask from ourselves. Am I speaking in the right time? The second thing that we need to follow is, we need to ask from ourselves, am I speaking truthfully? Right? The Buddha says, you need to follow the truthful speech. You need to say the truth. But even though the truth, you need to put it in the right time, in the right place, right? The Buddha says, even I, right? Even the Buddha, even though it is the truth, he waits until the right time to say it. Sometimes it is not the correct time to say the truth, so that we need to wait until that. Now, this doesn't say that we need to tell lies to cover up that, right? This says that you need to be patient and not panicked until you need to use the proper word. So the Buddha says that speaking truthfully is very important. Why? Because when you speak the truth, sometimes you may lose certain things, but when you speak the truth, you gain one very important thing, and that is the truth. That is the trust. Trust is very important in any kind of relationship. And that is why you need to be truthful, but also you need to wait until the proper time. Okay? So that is the second thing that you need to ask. Am I speaking truthfully? And also we learn in Buddhism that speak gently, not harshly. So that you need to ask from yourself, am I speaking harshly? Am I speaking gently? Sometimes what you say is true, right? When you say is the correct time, right? You say it in the correct time. What you say is the truth, but the tone matters, right? The words that we use to convey the message matters. I have seen a lot of people showing others' mistakes with rude and harsh words, sometimes putting them down, like putting their mentality down and hurting their mentality and showing the truth, they're showing a mistake, but they don't get that message. Why? Because they have hurt their mentality. Sometimes when you use such kind of words, their emotions get hurt, so that they're not ready to listen to it. Now, why we convey the message, why we communicate, is we understand that this is the right thing, this is the correct thing, but I need to make him right. I need to make him correct. I don't need to see that mistake again in his life. I need the good of that person. Now, if you truly love that person, you have to use your words in a proper way so that he or she get the fullest message that you are conveying. And that is why we learn in Buddhism that gentle words can change people's mindsets. But rude and harsh words make nothing but people more stubborn in their own ideas. So that understand, gentle words are the best way to change other people's mindsets. There are a lot of examples even in Buddhism that we learn that the Buddha, how Bodhisattva used the gentle words to change people, right? So that understand, speaking gently is very important. Now, what makes a gentle man and a gentle woman is not how you wear, right? It's the words that you speak. It's the way that you behave. It's how gentle you treat other people. That is what makes you a gentleman and a gentlewoman. So understand that speaking gently is really, really important. So ask from yourself, am I speaking gently? And also we learn in Buddhism that your speech must be beneficial for the other person, not harmful. Now, to do that, you need to have an intention that you truly love that person, right? You truly love your idea to see that in that person's mind and making their life much better, right? See the good on them. Now, to do that, you need to speak in a beneficial way so that that person corrects their mistakes, right? That person's life becomes better by listening to your words. So that the Buddha says that always speak beneficial words, not the words that harm other people's life. So then you need to ask from yourself that, am I speaking beneficially but not harmfully? So that understand, you need to speak to the people to see the good on them. And the final question that we need to ask from ourselves is that, am I speaking lovingly, out of love and compassion, not with inner hate? Sometimes we use our words, even though the good words, good things, but we have the inner hate, right? When we have the inner hate, that is the intention behind our words. And that intention can create negative situations in our life and also the other people's lives. And that is why in Buddhist way of right speech, we refrain from all the negative speeches like rude words, harsh words, right? or some mean words that has the negative intentions behind, right? So the intention behind your speech is really, really important. So that understand, ask from yourself that, am I speaking to this person out of love and compassion, not with inner hate, right? So the Buddha says that speak with love and compassion. Okay. Sometimes some people complain, okay, if we speak with love and compassion, they are not ready to understand it. And we believe that speaking with like kind words and compassionate and gentle words will make other people not to understand what we say. Sometimes they say, okay, to make someone understand, we need to use rude and harsh words. But that is not always correct, right? The reason why we believe that using those rude and harsh words is the only way to get the message to that person is because when we were children, we were treated with rude and harsh words, right? We were disciplined in the rude and hard ways, so that we believe that this is the only way to do that, but it is not, right? If you start to use in the correct way your speech, it is pretty sure that you get the message correctly to that person, and also they understand it and they make their mistakes correct. So that understand, these are the 5 things that we need to follow. These are the five questions that we need to ask from ourselves to get the message correctly, to communicate in a correct way, and also to make our speech wiser. So follow these 5 things in your speech and make your life even more better. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome and welcome back to another video. From today's video, we're going to discuss about one of the major problems that we go through in our mind when it comes to the stress and anxiety. And that is the what if scenarios, the catastrophizing of mind. Now, this state of mind can affect for many people, and they suffer a lot when these kind of thought patterns hit their mind, right? So what if scenarios are like, you imagine all the worst case scenarios in your mind. Like, what if that happened to me? What if everything went wrong? What if they're cheating me? What if the people all around are up to no good? So we expect and we create these scenarios in our mind and we suffer in it. Okay. And our brain is pretty good at creating these scenarios in our mind, right? So that is why we need to learn how to deal with these kind of thoughts when they come into our mind. Not every time we get these kind of thoughts, but when there are certain times that we get these kind of mental states, and it's very painful, and people suffer a lot in these kind of thought patterns. And this is where the Buddhist practice of mindfulness comes in handy, right? In Buddhist practice, we call mindfulness as sati. Sati is the bringing your mind to this present state and understanding the reality as it is, right? So when you understand the true nature of reality, when you understand that everything, every experience, every mental state has one intrinsic nature, and that is changing. Every mental state, every experience is subjected to changing, right? But before doing that, there are certain things that we need to understand and we need to think and practice to deal with these kind of catastrophizing thoughts, right? These what if scenarios. The first practice, we need mindfulness to understand this, because we need to catch this thought, right? Without you catching this thought and understanding and realizing this thought, you cannot do anything, right? You cannot deal with anything that you don't understand about. So the first step is to know that you're in the mental state of catastrophizing, right? What if scenarios. So the first step is to understand and challenge your thought, right? How to challenge your thoughts. Now, in this practice, we need mindfulness. We need to catch this thought, right? And understand as it is. And then ask the question from yourself that, is this the reality or is this just another distortion of my mind about the reality of the life, right? Because the mind and our brain can distort the reality in many ways. It can create many scenarios, but in reality, the problem is very, very little, right? Sometimes there is no problem. I've seen this a lot of times in mind, that when we don't have much things to worry about, right? When the life goes smoothly, we worry about even about the little things in life. Okay, so that is why first we need to understand, is this reality or is this another distortion of my mind about the reality, right? When you understand this, when you come to this present moment and understand what reality is, then you find that there are very few things that we need to worry about, and many things, right? 99% of what we go through is just another distortion of our mind, right? So challenging your thought is very important when you deal with these kinds of mental states. And once you understand the reality, now then you can ask from yourself that, what can I do about it? Is there anything that is under my control that I can take some actions to change this state, right? And then you understand that there are certain things in life that are under your control and that are not under your control, that are out of your control. So then you have to realize that the things that are under your control is totally worth worrying and totally worth taking actions. And the things that are not under your control, we don't have anything to do about it. And also we can't change that state. So what we can do is we can accept it, right? Once you realize the reality, one thing that you can do is to understand what is in your control and what is not in your control. And that is the next thing that you have to do. And once you understand the present state of mind, now you can add a little mindful practice to your life, right? Such as breathing meditation, right? A mindful in-breath and out-breath will help you to relieve your stress. Okay, this is something the Buddha introduced us to do, and Buddha emphasizes to do, to stop the chattering of your mind, to stop this restlessness of your mind. Because once you're in these kind of mental states, one thing that happens to your mind is you become restless. So a mindful breathing practice will help you to relieve the anxiety and relieve the stress from your mind and become more peaceful and calm. And there's another practice that you can do, and this is not directly mentioned in Buddhism, but you can set a time to worry about things, right? So what you have to do when the worryings and when these regrets and these kind of thought patterns come into your mind, say to yourself, okay, wait, there is a time in my day to worry about these things. So wait until that. I will wait until that. And when that time comes, I will do my worrying. I will do my regretting. So what you do, you set an alarm to yourself that I will worry in the future. So then set a maybe time period during the day that you sit down and think, okay, what is there in my mind and in my life to worry about, right? And to check the reality. And then you spend a good time. You don't spend that time worrying and regretting. You spend that time analyzing and not overthinking, but analyzing and realizing about the reality of the life and the present state of life, so that you find there are very few things to worry about in life. And all the other things that our mind has created inside our mind are just nothing but distortions of reality. So these are the few practices that you can add to your life whenever you get these kind of thought patterns. Practicing these tips will help you to ease up your mental state. So practice this and make your mind peaceful and calm. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. We all know that forgiving is difficult, right? It is easier said than done. Now, even in forgiving, it is very easy to forgive for the mistakes that other people have done to us. But it is really, really difficult to forgive for our own mistakes. for the mistakes that we have done in the past, right? And so many people, most of us worry about the things that has happened in the past, about the things that we said in the past, about how we act in the past, how we lived in the past. And we get stuck in these mistakes and we waste a lot of time, right? But the Buddha teaches us a way to look at these mistakes and how to move on and how to move through them and how to grow through them. So from this video, we are going to discuss about how can we deal with the mistakes that we have done in the past and how can we correct them and how can we deal with them. So I want to share with you how the Buddha advised for the monks who have done mistakes and how they got the advice to deal with it. So the Buddha says, Buddhissa bhikkhu ariyassa vinaye yo achayang achayato disva yatha dhammang patikaroti ayathing sangvarang apajati. The Buddha says, for it is growth in the training of nobles to recognize a mistake for what it is, deal with it properly, and commit to restrain in the future. So the Buddha says the first step of understanding and first step of dealing with a mistake that has done in the past is to accept it, to see the mistake as it is, to see the wrong thing as a wrong thing. This is called acceptance. Now, one of the most difficult things for us to do is to accept that we have done mistakes. Why? Because there is something that hurt us in our mind, right? It is a really big problem, and that is nothing but the ego. We always think, okay, we are right, we are correct, and I will never do mistakes. But the reality is, we all are humans, we all have imperfections, we all have defilements in our minds, so that we make mistakes, right? There's a saying that says, as long as you make mistakes, you are human. So understand, you're a human and you make mistakes, and the nature of your mind is to make wrong choices, wrong things, and do the mistakes. For that, you're okay with it, right? So that you understand the nature of your life, that I'm a human and I make mistakes, so you accept it. When you accept it, you don't hate yourself. Now, the problem is not the mistake. The problem is worrying about it, brooding over it, holding on to it, and wishing that, I wish I couldn't do that. I wish I didn't say that. No, I wish I didn't act like that. So that we waste a long, long time, right? A valuable time that we can use to create something better for our life. So that the Buddha says, accept the mistake, right? Accept that you have done the mistake. Remember, acceptance is the first step of healing, right? Acceptance is the first step of healing, so that you don't hate yourself, so that you are not in war with yourself. Now you open up your mind to move on. So the Buddha says, see the wrong thing as a wrong thing, right? See the mistake as a mistake and accept that you have done it. So the first step of dealing with a past mistake or wrong thing that you have done in the past is to accept it. So after accepting, now what to do? The Buddha says, now reveal it to someone who can understand you, right? Confess it. How to do that? You find someone who can understand you, right? Who can give you a good advice and who doesn't judge you, and say to him that I did this mistake, right? This mistake was happened from me. Now, why should you confess it? Now, when you confess it, you're sharing what is inside you with someone who can understand you. Okay, there are many good things when you confess. One thing is that your mind becomes free, right? Because after doing a mistake, if a mistake had happened, one thing that keep criticizing us is our mind, ourself, right? So that understand, when you confess, you can free your mind, right? your heart is not complaining you, so that you opened up yourself, right? That is one good thing that happens when you confess. And also, you get good advice from them, how to deal with it. Sometimes, for some problems, we cannot deal with alone, right? You don't have to deal with each and every problem alone, right? You can ask for help. One thing that it is really, really, really difficult to do is to ask for helps, right? But if we ask it, the helps will be given from the right people, right? That is why the Buddha says, do not go around saying your mistakes to everyone, but find at least one person, right? We all can find at least one person who can understand us, who doesn't judge us from our mistakes, and also who can give us good advice. Okay, that is the good thing about having noble friends around you. Okay, so the Buddha says, confess it, open up yourself to someone who is very wise and who can give you advice. And then the Buddha says the next step is to take right actions to not to happen it again, not to make that mistake again and again. So the Buddha says, Yatha dhammang patikaroti, I think sangvarang apajati. To be restrained in the future, to not to do that mistake and not to make that mistake happen again and again. And that is why they say that 100 times the same mistake is regression, right? If you do the same mistake 100 times, then there is no development, right? But 100 times different mistakes is progression, right? We will do thousands and thousands of mistakes in this life, but from every mistake, if we take the decision to not to happen it again, right, and you learn from it, and you will make mistakes again and again, but you learn from them. Understand that every difficult situation, every mistake that you make in life is a great lesson. But the problem is, we think that we should not be making mistakes, we should not be doing wrong things, and we think that we will be perfect forever. But in reality, we are not. So that acceptance, confession, and taking right action to not to it happen again is the way to deal with the mistakes. Understand, as long as you are human, I will say this again, as long as you are human, you will make mistakes. Accept them, confess them, and then take right action to not do it to happen again, so that you can learn from your mistakes and you can grow through them. Keep this in your mind. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Good morning, everyone. Welcome and welcome back to another video. From today's video, we're going to discuss about the practice of merit in Buddhism. Now, the word that is given to the merit in Pali text is punya. Now, the Buddha describes this punya in many ways. Now, in one place, the Buddha describes that there are 3 streams of accumulating merits, and there are 3 streams of merits to life. One is being dana, the generosity, giving; sila, living the life in a virtuous way; and bhavana, the meditation. So Buddha mainly describes these are the 3 practices and these are the 3 streams of merits to life. But the practice of merit is one of the most underappreciated practices in Buddhism, specifically when it comes to the Western approach of Buddhism. It may seem like a sensible thinking because this practice may seem like a little bit deviating from the core concepts like non-self and letting go in Buddhism. But the practice of merit is one of the things that even the Buddha had appreciated. So if the Buddha appreciated it, if the master appreciated it, then there is no reason that we can see that we can deny the practice of merit. Now, the reason why the Buddha emphasized the practice of merit is because it is like a good foundation for the spiritual practice, right? For an example, if someone practices giving, right, he practiced a form of selflessness, like letting go, so that it gives the rise, it gives the spark to let go in a higher way, like a higher state, right? So the Buddha says that practice these three streams of merit and develop a good foundation of spirituality. And with that foundation of spirituality, with that good foundation of spirituality, you can achieve the higher states of spirituality. So that is why the Buddha emphasized the practice of merit in Buddhism, so that we cannot say that you should not practice merit, right? I have seen a lot of people that deny the practice of merit. They say like, oh, we should not practice merits, we should let go of that, and we should always focus on the selflessness and vipassana and non-self. But here's the thing, without that foundation, how can we build up a good spiritual practice? How can we achieve the higher states of spirituality? And that is why the Buddha says, practice this merit. So simply, what is merit? Merit are the actions that we do with the good intentions, like generosity, compassion, loving kindness, and these actions leads to the wholesome states of mind. And the more we practice this, the more wholesome our mind become, right? So the point of practice of merit is to keep the mind in a wholesome state, right? The more we do it, the mind tend to turn towards the wholesome side of the mind, right? That is why we practice this merit. And also, there are many ways to do that, right? By giving, you can practice merit, right? By being selfless and putting yourself into service towards others can accumulate merits. And also by living a virtuous life can accumulate merit. And by meditating, giving loving kindness, showing compassion, there are lots of ways to accumulate merits to life, right? And if we do that, we can become a good human. Simply the point of practicing the merit is to simply become a human with good intentions and a human with a wholesome heart. So the practice of merit is crucial in Buddhist practice, and do not deny it, right? Keep on practicing it, and it lays you a good foundation for all of your spiritual practices. So keep this little advice in your mind and practice this merit and make your life beautiful. Namo Buddhaya.